The key to the future lies in the oceans.
If you think about the Earth as really the landmass that we all occupy, then there are 3 planets worth of resources available in the ocean. Minerals, chemicals, biological. It is a vast, huge opportunity.
In the classic science fiction adventure novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Seas, written in 1871 by writer, French author Jules Verne, Verne introduces us to the character Captain Nemo and his futuristic, electronically powered submarine. In his quest to remain a mystery to mankind, he invites his shipwrecked crew onto his vessel under the pretext of rescue, with the intention of never allowing them to leave. According to Dr. Wolfgang Rosenthal, on average worldwide, 2 ships sink every week. Susan Casey, author of The Wave, In Pursuit of the Rogues, Freaks, and Giants of the Ocean. Large ships sink and simply go missing, including their crews. In a published actuarial report, there were approximately 7 ships that disappeared without a trace from 2002 to 2013. That's right, without a trace. And what's even more astonishing is that 2,000 seafarers die each year. Yes, 2,000. With over 85,000 working vessels on our seas, the loss of 200 ships seems de minimis, with most losses being attributed to human error. Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Michelle, and I want to welcome everyone to Tab Talks. And I have one of my favorite guests back, Edward Zhang. Welcome back, Edward. How are you?
Thank you, Doctor. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm just excited to be here and, talk to you and everyone who's listening in on, just the state of the ocean and just, how we can better prepare ourselves for the future. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, you're a marine biologist, and I know there have been a lot of experts on social media over the last week, and I think we probably all have seen and learned about the ocean based off of the horrific accident that happened with Ocean Gate. But I think just first off, I don't think people have a real good understanding of the role of water, and I think that's why we call tonight's show Formidable, Man versus the Ocean. Sometimes man in our hubris think that we can conquer everything. And so can you kind of give us a breakdown of water and just how much water is on this planet? Because I really don't think people understand that.
So basically, there's a lot. Clearly, there's a lot of water on our planet. I don't know if people realize, but that there's the ratio for water to land is about 7 to 3. So it stands for there's more than double the amount of land that there is in the oceans actually. So it's definitely a lot more water than land on Earth. And then if you want to look at percentages, about 71% of Earth's surface is covered with water, so that's about right. It's about 2/3 of the planet's surface. And then out of all of that water, roughly 96.5% is actually ocean water. So it's it's like salt water, marine water. It's the water from our oceans, from our seas, stands for roughly 96.5%. And then the rest, roughly, for 3.5% is roughly just the water from other sources like ice caps, glaciers, and then there's actually a very small percentage of water from like fresh water and saline groundwater that is roughly like 1.7%. So I know it doesn't seem like much, right? It's only like it's like not even 2%, right, of all the water on the planet, but that actually is most of that water is stuff that is water that we use, right? It's water that cities use, that civilians use every day, that people use, and yet that's only less than 2% of the amount of total water on Earth. So I think you can, that gives you a general idea of just how much water there is. Um, you
Wow.
can look at it another way, if by looking at just how much water though. There's actually a calculation that says there's roughly 332 million cubic miles of water. I know that probably doesn't seem like, it doesn't really help because this is in miles, but if you look at, if you do a little conversion, 1 cubic mile of water is actually about 1.1 trillion gallons. Um, I wanted to write it, I wanted to do the calculation myself and sort of, give you a number, but I think that's possible, right?
If anybody's got any scientific calculators out there, good luck.
It's too
Have
like
at it.
way too many zeros. Like I can't
Too
even do
many
it.
zeros.
I can't. So yeah, it's just it's a huge amount of water. And I think if you look at like the first slide that I in my presentation, there's a like I wouldn't say but like a photo of of the planet with all of the water sort of condensed into a sphere. I know the sphere probably doesn't look like much at first, right? It's like it's like the size of a couple of states, right? It doesn't look huge, but the sphere is actually 860 miles in diameter. So it's a sphere. So like each from each side to the other, it's 860 miles. So it's actually a pretty huge amount of water. Just to give you a little representation of what that's like, you know.
Okay, so
Yeah.
man versus water. I hope everybody hears that. 7-3. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna pick on my literary scholars there because we were talking about water and just submersibles. Back in 1870, Jules Verne actually wrote a novel called 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And for all my scholars out there, my mathematicians, if you want to find out what a league is, but it was a fantasy. And basically, that's when he introduces this character called Captain Nemo. And you have these scientists that are looking for this imaginary dragon when it's actually an electric powered submarine. So back in 1870, you actually had people writing about electric submarines that are submerged. So and when it talks about these 20,000 leagues, and I think a league is like 3 miles or something like that, I think. So I got to check that. But apparently, when you're looking at these facts, they talk about these zones in the ocean, how deep you can actually go in the ocean. Can you detail that for everybody? Like, what are these zones and how deep can you actually go?
Yeah, so when we're talking about ocean zones, we're actually talking about two different sets, like two different types of zones, because you can look at the ocean two ways. One is if you're looking at it just purely purely based off of water. So you're looking, straight down the water column. Like imagine you have, you just you have a column of water going, from the surface all the way down to the deepest part of the ocean. So there's 5 zones that are specifically looking at just the water column, and there's another 5 that are looking at the seafloor. So when I say land, I'm just referring to the seafloor. So you can also divide the seafloor into a couple of different zones based on depth. So when we're talking about depths, it's there's 5. I mean, there's 2 sets of zones depending on what you're looking at. So with that being said, so let's go over the ocean water zones first. So these
Okay.
zones are altogether known as the pelagic zones. These zones are so we're starting out at the surface, and then the surface zone is named the sunlight, or otherwise known as the epipelagic zone. This zone is, like I said, it's at the surface layer. So it's a lot of sunlight is here, hence the name. There is, it's not very deep, so it goes down to roughly 200 meters. I mean, it's still, right? I mean, arguably it's still pretty deep. But
200 meters.
I'm saying, yeah, I'm saying it's not deep because, like, you'll see later on just how deep just how deep the ocean goes.
Okay.
But 200, yeah, it goes down to 200 meters. And then so most of the light is here, and sunlight, and hence there's quite a bit of heat here, so it's pretty
Okay.
warm. There can be a bit of a variation of temperature with seasons and latitudes, obviously. So it's like, it's warmer towards the tropics and cooler towards the Arctic, towards the poles. And then here there's like quite a bit of mixing because of the wind. So like if wind blows over the water, it kind of mixes the temperature and stuff inside. So there's quite a bit of mixing going on. So it actually allows like heat to be, distributed pretty evenly throughout. So that's the first zone. The second zone is the mesopelagic zone. That goes down to about 1,000 meters. So we're getting into, kind of uncharted territory here already. It's
Okay.
pretty deep, 1,000 meters. And then here we're already most of the light is already gone, so the light is pretty faint here. That's why this zone is sometimes nicknamed the Twilight Zone or the Midwater Zone, because there's just not a lot of light here. The temperature here can change quite a bit because at this zone you come across the thermocline, which is a region where their water temperature drops quite rapidly with depth. So it creates sort of like a transitioning layer between the top, the mixed surface layer, and like the deeper ocean layer below. And then this kind of it can change with season and with year, but it's usually, there. And this is where the temperature drops quite drastically. So you kind of have that going on here. And here, because there's not much light going on, most of the light that you see here is from bioluminescence. So it's light that are generated from like living organisms. Some marine animals can generate their own light, and their eyes here are also tend to be larger, and they're like pointed upwards because these animals have like evolved to see prey above them because they're already pretty down below. They're pretty down low. So that's where
Repeat that again. You said their eyes. They've actually
Yeah.
developed eyes on top of their heads so they can see above them.
Yeah, their eyes are
Wow.
like pointed upwards so that they've evolved to be able to see their prey that are up above them, because their prey are usually above them, like they're already pretty down like low. So
Wow. Okay.
yeah, they've evolved that. And then we go one step further to the bathopelagic zone. The bathopelagic zone is from 1,000 meters to 4,000. So you're going another step, down. And here it's the zone is sometimes called the midnight zone because at this point, like there's no light, like there's no light already, and it's constant darkness. So when people talk about the midnight zone, they're referring to this zone.
Okay.
So because there's no light here, any light that you see is from bioluminescence. So it's from animals themselves, actually.
Wow. Okay.
So if you see, if you see light down here, like you're around some, fish or whatever other marine organisms here, like
Okay.
because there's no light here.
Wow.
And then because you've already gone past the thermocline, at this point the temperature is again constant. There's no mixing, there's no thermocline, so the temperature is constant here, and it's around 39 degrees Fahrenheit. And as you can imagine, the pressure it's pretty high here. The pressure can reach up to 5,850 pounds per square inch. So just a very, just 1 inch of area down here, you have almost 6,000 pounds of pressure above you. So it's huge. Definitely, it's a significant amount of pressure. But we still haven't reached down the bottom yet. The next zone is the abyssopelagic zone. And as the name, probably you can guess by the
The
name.
abyss.
Yeah, it's basically the abyss down here. It's pretty much as far as deep down as you can get. It goes down from 4,000 to 6,000 meters, and then here it's I mean, it's pitch black, right? I mean, above there's already no light above it in the midnight zone. So here it's like it's just pitch black. There's few animals down here, so there's even bioluminescence is pretty rare. It's pretty much the bottom layer of the ocean. Most of it it accounts for roughly 75% of the area of the deep ocean floor. So most of the deep ocean just gets to this level and that's it. The temperature here is pretty low. It's almost freezing, and there's just not much going on down here. Hence the hence the name. But there's one last zone. There is one last zone. This zone is one that people don't usually talk about because it just there's a few places reach down to this kind of depth. Most of them just stop at the previous zone and that's it. But there are a few places that can reach down to this zone. This is called the Halologic Zone. The Halologic Zone is the deepest zone on Earth, like in the oceans. And at this point, basically, there's a few places that reach here, and you're basically talking about the places like the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest area of the ocean. Here the temperature is pretty much just above freezing. There's nothing going on down here. And as compared to before, when I said that there was roughly 6,000 pounds of pressure before, here you can get up to 8 tons of pressure. So it's just incomprehensible, like just the amount of pressure down here, because you have all of that water weighing you down from above. So it's just it's a place that most animals can't reach. Even with submersibles, some submarines, they can't reach down here.
Now, was there one researcher that tried to go down that Mariana Trench, like in 2012? He had I want to say a submersible one. I'll put a picture up. I don't know how successful his mission was, but he talked about that layer that nobody goes to. And I think he's been the only human being that actually ever went into this crevice.
I believe that was James Cameron, right?
Okay. It was pretty frightening. Because
I think he might have been I think he was the one who reached down to like 10,000 meters or something like that. So pretty I know he's an expert on this field, on submarines and submersibles, and he's done a lot of explorations to the Titanic. So
brave man, I'll tell you that.
Do you know the deepest point on our Mother Earth? 36,000 feet below Pacific Ocean. There is a crescent-shaped trench, which is the deepest known points on Earth, known as the Mariana Trench. The Mariana Trench was created by the process that occurs in a subduction zone, where two massive slabs of oceanic crust collide. The Mariana Trench is attached to the Earth crust that measures more than 2,550 kilometers long and 69 kilometers wide. The deepest point of the Mariana Trench is known as the Challenger Deep. The distance between the surface of the ocean and the Challenger Deep is nearly 36,000 feet. And that means that if Mount Everest were dropped into the Mariana Trench at this point, the peak of the Everest would still be 2,000 feet underwater. In 1960, Jacques Picard and Navy Lieutenant Don Walsh has reached to the deepest point on Earth. And on March 26, 2012, Titanic director James Cameron made a history of reaching the bottom of the Challenger Deep. James Cameron completed the Challenger Deep expedition in 2 hours and 36 minutes. With deep diving submarine known as Deep Sea Challenger. During the historic underwater expedition, James Cameron didn't see any fish at the bottom. He saw only some small living creatures which were not more than an inch long. The wide range of the Mariana Trench has spread out with a unique toxic environments, like bubbling up liquid sulfur and carbon dioxide, and active mud volcanoes. The temperature of the liquid is 103 degrees Celsius. Because of its extreme depth, the Mariana Trench is full of darkness and the temperature is just a few degrees above freezing. The water pressure at the bottom of the trench is a crushing 8 tons per square inch, or about 1,000 times the standard atmospheric pressure at sea level. This is equivalent of having 50 jumbo jets placed on top of a person. Recent scientific expeditions have discovered surprisingly diverse life in these harsh conditions. Animals living in the deepest parts of the Mariana Trench survive in complete darkness and extreme pressure. The 3 most common organisms at the bottom of the Mariana Trench are xenophyophores, amphipods, and small sea cucumbers.
I'll tell you that. Okay. Okay, I'm fascinated. Okay, keep going, because I think we've gotten
So
even.
I just talked about the Halologic Zones. So those are the ones that make up the ocean. But then there's also 5 benthic zones that make up the ocean floor. And these zones, I'm just gonna go over them pretty quickly. I don't want to spend too much time here.
Okay.
The first one is the intertidal zone. So this one is the seafloor that is sometimes above the ocean, so above like sea level. So like this is where there is a difference in high tide and low tide. So like the difference where there's a high tide and low tide, like that area is known as the intertidal zone. So this is a place that sometimes you see, sometimes you don't, right, depending on the time of day and stuff. But this is the first benthic zone. And then the second one below that is called the continental shelf. This one is basically the part of the continent, part of the land that's underwater. This part it can be pretty broad and it descends sort of like gradually down to 200 meters. This is basically the place where, you know, the land sort of, the bottom of continents, the bottom of land that reaches the ocean. And then the third part is known as the continental slope. This is where it's sort of the outer edge of the continental shelf. So like it reaches, it's the place that connects the continental shelf to the ocean floor. And then here it can vary quite a bit, depending on, you know, how like far away the continental shelf is from the ocean floor. And so this can be anywhere from 200 to 3,000 meters. So quite a bit of range there, definitely. And then the fourth zone below that is called the continental rise. This one is not as steep as the previous zone. And this one basically consists of material that has fallen from the continent. So it can be stuff like pieces from earthquakes or landslides. It could be smaller pieces like from sediment, from from runoffs or from natural erosion. So this part is not as steep. But there can be quite a bit of range as well. It can go from 3,000 to 6,000 meters. And by the way, the Titanic is actually located around this area. So it's around 3,800 meters where the Titanic is. So it's part of it's like laying on the continental rise. And then the final one is basically again, going down as deep as you can to the to basically like the depths of the Mariana Trench. So the lowest you can go. This is called the ocean basin, otherwise known as the abyssal plain. Again, it's pretty deep. It goes down from 6,000 meters. It can extend all the way down to roughly 11,000. It basically corresponds with the Halologic Zone that I mentioned earlier. And again, this is just the deepest part of the ocean, like as far as you can go. Yeah.
Wow, everybody. I hope, Edward, thank you for that amazing, and not only just the graphics, but just a real detailed explanation so people can really understand. There's so much underneath the oceans that we don't even begin to see what's happening. And I think it's only been recently that we recognize this isn't just like a really quick dive down into the ocean. I mean, you can see clearly from all these different layers and zones that the climate changes, the actual habitat that's in these areas changes. And that's why I think we've gotten this greater understanding of just how formidable the oceans can be. Okay, we know that, the ocean is one of our largest ecosystems, and I learned that from you from the last time you were with us on the show. And ships go missing quite frequently. I don't think people realize that. I think it's just that recently, because of the submersible that went missing, people are paying attention. But there are maritime organizations who track this all the time. How dangerous are the oceans? I mean, we're talking about freezing temperatures. You're talking about pressures that we can't even begin to measure with some of our calculators. Talk about just some of the real dangers of the ocean.